Welcome to our program, Henry.
Thanks for having me, Giovanna. Thank you.
So today we want to talk about a financial review checklist. Now I think, like many people, we all know we should do one, but it's so hard to actually start. Where do we start?
Getting started, as you said, is always the most difficult thing. And I find that looking at the fact that people have a 401, that people have some sort of investment portfolio, that's a good place to start, because what people did last year might not be relevant in terms of this year. So figuring out to see whether or not your objectives are the same, whether or not your risk tolerance is the same, whether you feel as perky this year as you might have last year. So looking at the 401, figuring out whether or not you're getting enough time with the investment professional that's helping you, or whether or not you've spent enough time with yourself and or with your spouse or significant other, just to see whether or not the objectives that you've set are actually being met.
All right, so you talked about the 401k. Give me a couple of examples of some other categories of things that we need to check out.
Well, I like to look at things from a protection point of view, and you can have the money, but God forbid, what happens if something should happen to a young family while they're driving along the highway, and all of a sudden one spouse winds up leaving the other. So I think that a life insurance review is very, very important for two reasons, whether it's for a young couple or whether it's for a middle-aged couple. Life insurance is one of those things that people just have to get their hands around, and even though they don't want to, even though they don't understand it, they've got to bring it out from that bottom right-hand drawer and actually see whether or not it's fulfilling their objectives, whether they have enough, whether, for that matter, whether or not that contract is even still in force. Because anybody that bought a contract over the last 25 years, there's a very good chance that that contract, because of lowered interest rates over the last 2 decades, might not still be available. So looking at that is important.
Okay, so you talked about interest rates changing. Going into the new year, are there any other things that we need to take a look at that may have changed, that may impact our financial standing?
Well, certainly our taxes, and it's very, very important to sit down, and although it's impossible to review and do anything, plan anything in November, December for 2014, but it's a good time to make the commitment to decide that this is something that I'm going to do for next year. Making sure that you have an accountant, making sure that you have an attorney. Again, from a protection point of view, there's nothing worse than having an accident and not having a power of attorney or any of the advance directives that you could normally give to a spouse to help you to be able to make decisions for you.
Final moments, talk to us about what the biggest surprise is that people have no idea about regarding this financial review checklist.
Well, again, not to harp on the concept of life insurance, but the biggest problem that I'm finding is that 35% of people's life insurance is prematurely expiring. So whether it's owned individually or whether it's owned by a trust, making sure that the insurance that you thought that you had is still available.
All right, so we'll take another good look at that.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Henry.
you. Thanks.